Well, good morning. It's Wednesday, and there's a picture of little bite spots. Yay! Um, Stuff I'm working on is up here, but this is where I need to do the flip if anyone asks for one. But so far, there's nobody on chat to ask for a flip, so I'm gonna just welcome everybody to Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. Missed you on Monday and Tuesday. We knew that Monday wouldn't happen because that was there were just chores that needed to be done and family events that had to happen. And I was planning on Tuesday, but the continuing tale of woe of house renovations really took hold on Tuesday, yesterday, and so yeah, yesterday was a day. Oh, yeah, it was a day. But yeah, it's over, and now it's Wednesday, and we're back to Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. So sorry I missed you earlier this week. If everything goes okay, I hope it does. I'll be back on Friday for Relaxing Painting D&D minifigs. I'm working on this collection of imps. These little imps. There are 7 of them. I've got 5 completed. This one's base coated. It needs to be washed. And then this one needs to be painted and then washed. So on Friday, I should finish the imp collection. And then I don't know what will happen next. I've got a bunch of other things that haven't been primed yet that maybe I'll prime. There's a centaur and some sort of, there's this thing that looks, I don't know, kind of ogre-y maybe. So find out what this is maybe, and work on this on Friday. The other things, or maybe the centaur. Never know. Okay. Yeah, it is. As I was putting this back, I bashed it into the centaur's spear. Yeah. And just busted it right off. Nice going day. Nice start to the day. Anyway, these are done on one of the printers here, and they're quite fragile, as I have found over and over again. This guy has a spear which has survived all sorts of things. Moving around and everything until just now, when all I did was, I'm just going to show off one of the other minifigs, and then bashed into it. So, it's not starting out really well. So I guess one of the things I need to do today, it was sort of an unexpected event, is I need to cement this back on. I'm going to use a little bit of epoxy. And since the day is going so well already anyway, why not just go ahead and do it right now? Just mix up a little epoxy, get a toothpick. I mean, why should I work on the submarine on Sub Wednesday when I could be repairing something that I broke because I was just a little bit careless. So those of you who are watching this have seen more than one. Those of you who have seen more than one of these streams know that one of the features I continuously ask for, but probably isn't going to happen anytime soon because there's always something else to do. But one of the things that I've been asking for is on the little Stream Deck thing I've got here, which has been greatly simplified for my use. There used to be there's like 15 buttons on it, and there used to be 10 of them that were something. And then, one time, just once, I pushed the wrong button and messed everything up, and the whole stream had to be started over, and we lost it, and things like that. I mean, so I made a mistake once, right? Or maybe more than once. It might have been more than once. Anyway, the Stream Deck became significantly simplified. And so there are only 6 of the 15 being used, and what I've asked for is a couple of OO buttons. I wanted a minor OO and a major OO. So that when something like this happens, like when I reach over to set something down, and it just barely touches this very fragile spear on the centaur, then the centaur definitely needs to have the spear repaired. So when I do something like that, I can push the OO button. So instead of going, with a cute little graphic, maybe that would yeah. Anyway, that was good, wasn't it? With a cute little graphic that would pop up, right? You have to have that little graphic that would pop up that would go, oh. And if it were a major event, this one kind of falls between minor and major OO. I mean, it's minor in that if I can get this epoxy to work, it should be fixed. Major in that it's really kind of damaging to the minifig that was carefully printed on the rosin printer. I mean, to have this whole thing with all the detail and everything just beautifully done, and then have me just destroy it. That's kind of a major oh, but not as big as the one that I did once before that I almost did again. And that is, so there's a little printing string here that shouldn't be there. And I'm trying to take it off. And sometimes when I do that, there's another OO, and that something else breaks that shouldn't. But what I did was I reached over my coffee mug to get this X-Acto knife, and in reaching over, I almost replicated my biggest OO, which was when I knocked over a full mug of coffee onto the whole work surface. That was, I would say, that would have been a major OO. So then that would require a graphic with even some sort of cartoonish figure going like a Kevin thing, right? It would say big OO. Okay, well, I'm waiting for this epoxy to kind of set up. It's 5-minute epoxy, and if I were to attach it now, I'd have to hold it for 3.5 minutes. But if I let it kind of set up and then attach it, then I only have to hold it in place for like a minute or two. I got the puddle here, the puddle of epoxy. I can feel that it's starting to get kind of tacky. Into its hand like that. Okay. Now I need to just sit here motionless. Watch me hold it. Can watch me hold it. The next 2 minutes at least, the epoxy sets up. I guess I'm trying to keep it kind of in a straight, you know, in line with the shaft of this spear that it's holding. So now, yeah, count down with me at least 2 minutes. It might be a little longer. Could do that. 119, 118, 117, 16. That would be pretty boring, pretty much like the rest of it. So while I'm holding this for 2 minutes or longer, while the epoxy sets up so that the spear is no longer busted, I could tell you a little bit about Dyson Dungeons and somebody's here. Dyson Dungeons and about Submarine Wednesday. So Dyson Dungeons is a group of friends and relatives got together over a year ago to start a wonderful Dungeons and Dragons campaign, which is still ongoing. And you can watch it on a stream 3 Sundays a month with a live chat, 2 o'clock Eastern time, or you can catch it later on YouTube or as a podcast. And that's an ongoing campaign. It's really wonderful. World created by our dungeon mistress, Alexis. And yeah, you should join in on that. It's really a lot of fun. And that's what the whole point of Dyson Dungeons is about, is that D&D campaign. And as we were developing that campaign, we went from, playing on a 1x1 inch plastic grid to, let's get a 3D printer, like one of the ones behind me. And let's print dungeon tiles and maybe even some, scatter, we call it, like tents and sleeping bags and crates and desks and barrels and things like that. And then if we print them, let's paint them. And so this stream started as if we're going to be painting them, why don't we put a little camera up? This is not a high-tech studio. This is just a workshop where we paint the stuff for our D&D campaign, which is done in a pretty high-tech studio. So, yeah, we started painting dungeon tiles and stuff, and there's a little bit below me that shows some of the things that we've done. There's a horse. And also some of the dungeons, I guess you'd call them, that we created. There's some stone ones and there's wooden ones and things like that. So all of those are hand painted, and we've done them on this stream. And that continues to this day. A while ago, we finished a really huge addition to our sewers because we had an encounter in a sewer. And we have cut stone and rough stone and wood, and they're all really cool. I can't show them to you now because I'm holding this spear that I broke. Seems to be holding. Pretty much in line. It doesn't look like it got too terribly broken like it really was. So, unless it starts sagging, and hopefully it won't, the epoxy, the epoxy here is really pretty solid. You can watch this with me, see it, how it holds up. Yeah, so we started painting these dungeon tiles and accessories. There's a whole bunch of them there, tents and sleeping bags and things, as an example, and decided to stream this. And that's what I still am doing. That's why all those imps are there. I'm sure we're going to run into that cluster in one of our encounters. Yeah, that. And So one day there was nothing to paint, no dungeon tiles, no minifigs. And so I was told I can start painting. I can start building some of the models that I had collected when I retired that I never got around to starting because there's always something. Rather than not doing anything, there's always something. And so that the one I pulled out was a 1960s vintage Renoir cutaway submarine. And the is just highly intricate. I built one, the original one, when I was like in grade school in 7th or 8th grade. And yeah, but I didn't bother painting all the detail that I'm bothering with now. And I didn't bother carving down and sanding all the pieces that didn't fit very well. So this has been taking a really long time. I got the first third of the submarine done. This is number 6. I'm on step number 6 now. 6 of 9, I think. And the first 5 were really intricate. Control rooms and periscopes that work, and torpedo rooms, and tiny little lockers and control panels with dials and stuff. The galley with stoves with pots and pans hanging anyway. It's been taking a while and continues to take a while. I'm going to put this over here where maybe I won't smash into it again. I don't know. We'll see. And I'm going to put this way on the side. Get onto the submarine. So this is the missile launching deck. There are 16 missile launching tubes, each of which back in this prototype, the George Washington carried a Polaris missile, which carried one thermonuclear warhead. Yay. Later on, they went to Polaris and then to Trident missiles, which still fit in the tubes, but went further and carried warheads because you can never have too many warheads, right? Yeah, so this is the part I'm working on now, and I'll unveil what I've got so far. Try to remember where I am. I've got some pieces of equipment here, machinery that these bits here end up being glued into here and here with a pipe running through them. I can probably take them off the clips now. Here. It doesn't look like much, but it took 3 coats of paint to get these done. And then I've got these bulkheads, and these bits here all are part of the missile launching system. This one here is the bottom. This is an example of a tube. These are going to take a while, and I'll explain that in a bit. And these go into fit into these wells. They get cemented in. Okay. And then this thing is an intermediate deck. These things are supposed to slide up through there. They don't now because they've got, anyway, they're not exactly round when they get glued together. Sometimes the seams show, so they're not perfectly round. And then there's this little tab here, little tab of plastic when it came off of the tree that has to be filed down. Eventually, these are supposed to slide in here after they're painted without scraping the paint off. I don't know. That's going to go. Anyway, yeah, these are painted light gray. Dark gray. This one's done. This one isn't painted. This goes at the very tops of the tubes. It's going to be a huge challenge because these roundy bits have to be painted yellow. Those are the hatches for the tops of the yellow missile tubes. And I still have not figured out exactly how I'm going to paint these accurately. I might try to make like a mask or something, so that I can just spray paint on it. I don't know. I really don't know how I'm going to complete that. And then this thing, the decking needs to be painted light gray, and that's okay. I mean, I can paint around the machinery. I've done that before, but I've got all of these pneumatic tubes, essentially, that go from the machinery to each of the missile tubes. And I need to have a very, very clean edge on all of them. So I'm going to maybe a little bit later in the stream, if everything goes more or less okay, I might try to tape those in some fashion with this little tape that I've got to see if I can't do that. So I can get the line really nice and sharp and clean. Just to show you some of the stuff that happens here. These are the bulkheads, and the bulkheads have stuff on them. Like this one has this very intricate control panel. Okay, so I painted it gray and then tried to paint the dials and get that to work. This is going to be painted a light blue color. I have to paint around all of these things. This up here is painted dark gray, and I'm going to be painting that probably next. I need to get a teeny little brush and get in between all these little spots, like the fire extinguishers and the hatch. This deck here actually goes there. This, that fits in there like that. I don't know why that tab is there. Usually those tabs are put underneath the floor. Okay, so that the floor sits on them. All of the other decks do that. This one has a tab on top, and I think it's distracting. In fact, I'm almost tempted. I mean, it's there to keep it in line, right? To keep it aligned, but it just looks wrong. So, I mean, I can pretend it's a step or a box or something maybe, but I'm almost tempted, but I probably won't file it off so it doesn't show. Yeah, anyway, there's all that. So the upside of painting all these things ahead of time is that they're painted. The downside is that it makes cementing difficult because the cement dissolves the paint and just makes it all runny and gross. So that's another thing to deal with later. So this side is already painted. There's nothing much going on here. This is the room. This is the room on this side of it where the reactor sits, and that'll be kind of a fun thing to put together. And then this side is where the reactor is, which is why there's nothing much going on. Except the blemish. I don't know if that happened. Feels like it's raised. And this side, these are going to be painted light green. This is back here. Okay. And behind that, aft of that, toward the back of the submarine, is a whole bunch of machinery. You know, the kind of stuff that removes carbon dioxide from the air and heats the water, keeps the fans moving, turns the propeller, charges the batteries for things, gives power to the machinery here that creates compressed air to shoot these guys, the missiles out of the tubes, all of that. That's all back here. That's why there's this cute little tool thing here that I painted last Wednesday. Okay. Wrenches and hammers and hacksaws and stuff, and players, all gigantic. The scale of this is really weird. Okay. So there's little people that are scattered around here that I'm not bothering with this hammer. This hammer would be like 5 feet long if everything were to scale. Very weird. Okay, so there's all of that. I'm going to start by painting. I put a piece of tape across here to where, if you saw this, I showed you how this deck fit. Okay, this deck fits where the tape is, and so I need to paint down to the tape, right? So that when I put the deck in, it is that color. And then I'll take the tape off, because if you see how this goes, the tape goes below. You can see the tape showing. This all has to be painted light blue. And so I'd have to take that tape off, and I'd basically be painting up to, but not over, the dark gray that I'll be using for this section. And once the dark gray is out, I'm going to do things like, okay, touching this up. I don't know what happened there, but the paint is not on the way it should be anymore. In there, I'll just, if I remember, I would do little bits of touch up on places where the paint is flawed. As I'm doing this, I keep reminding people that I am not a master painter or a master modeler. I do the best I can, and sometimes it comes out looking really good, and sometimes it looks kind of meh. But for the most part, I am definitely an amateur at this and would not claim otherwise. So this isn't really a how-to show. This isn't that. Sometimes it's a how not to show, but for the most part, it's just, relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons, and it's Submarine Wednesday because I'm not painting minifigs today. I'm breaking them, apparently. That seems to be the thing I'm doing. Okay, what I'm looking for is, I've got this tiny little brush here that I'm going to use to paint around these things that need to be painted around. Okay, the hatch and the fire extinguishers and whatever this control thing is, an alarm system maybe. And then I want a slightly larger brush to spread the paint elsewhere to try to minimize brush marks. Okay. In order to do this, I could do it without these, but it's better with them. I've got these head magnifiers, they're called. Little lens that I get to put on like glasses that whatever. I mean, they look the way they look. It's got a light on it. And it helps me not so much control my hand, which is, as steady as it's going to be, but it helps me see where I'm putting the paint, which is kind of hard to do with these little bits. Got a vortex thing here that shakes up the paint. Sometimes it gives really nice fluttery effects. Yeah, that's pretty good. Usually I really try to use up like a half hour before I actually start painting, relaxing painting. And I was able to do that today. So, yay, good for me. Turn on the light. Aim it down. There we go. Focus. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad focusing today. And start painting around the edges and see if I manage to do it without too many uh-ohs, right? Trying to avoid uh-ohs this morning. Keep as I'm down here. The renovations on the house continue. So, because the people who are doing the work kind of go in and out of the house, the cats are trapped down here with me. And so every once in a while, you might have one walk into the workshop here and bitterly complain about not having full access to the rest of the house. And there's one that's really loud, so if he shows up, you'll know it. Sure. Need to name brand names or not. It doesn't matter if I do or don't. You can probably see the labels sometimes on the stream. The acrylics are. Let's just say when I did this the first time, the only paints that were really available were these enamels, and they were almost all glossy. It was really actually quite hard to get flat colors. I'm not sure why. They were actually kind of hard to use. They were pretty viscous. To clean them, you couldn't do water. What they tended to do is they were thick when they went on, so they kind of build up. You know how you paint onto the tape. I haven't used this tape before, so I'm hoping that when it comes off, it will leave a clean edge. Guess I'll find out. least in a preliminary way. Do it a little more later and get this bigger bristled brush out to do. Including this weird little thing that, as I said, is almost always, for the rest of the model, underneath the deck that's applied, not over, like in this case. But there it is. And unless I took it off. Okay. It came out okay. The paint, it's always weird looking. The paint has different gloss levels when it's wet and dry, and it sometimes looks like it's really lumpy, like here. And it's tempting, like I just did, to overbrush it. But it levels pretty nicely. There were some places I needed to do touch up. So I'm going to do the touching up, since this is the color that I need for the touching up. I think it was the back of this one. Yeah, there's a spot. Something just actually dripped on there. Very odd. Okay. I think I'm done with this color, so I can cap the bottle up and clean some brushes. Take these off for a moment. Hi, Ophala. Yeah, I can do a flip. Sorry. Just, time to do a flip, and then probably I'll really take that tape off before it dries too much. Sometimes it's good to take the tape off before it's completely dry. Anyway, like I said, I haven't used this tape before, so I'm not sure what's going to happen when I take it off. Let's find out. What happened is exactly what was supposed to happen, which is that the paint stayed on and tape came off, and there's a fairly clean line there. So if I were to take the deck that goes there, this one, and put it in place, see that it is dark gray above the deck and not below. And so when I paint the next color, I'll be painting close to, but not over that. Spot that. Okay, I can't tell. I have to look at this. It looks like I might have missed a spot, or maybe it's just that it's not dried yet. Yeah. Okay. I need to do this. This is the kind of dumb little touch-up stuff that happens all the time. Just you think you got it right, and then you don't. Kitties. one of the little cats protesting his confinement to the workshop floor. Okay, well, that was fun. To do a submarine Wednesday flip. Those of you who are regular watchers of Dice and Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons know that somebody asks for a flip, and what that means is taking something like this and flipping it. Yeah, I know. Here, all sorts of flips. Yeah, I did a touch up on this. I'm letting it dry. This side is going to be painted. It's a light green color. This is on the machine shop area. This side is facing the missile tubes and is painted light blue. Now, the instructions say painted green, okay, but the box top, which has more colors on it, the painting instructions for the model itself are just useless. I mean, totally useless. So I've been using the box top, and the box top had it light blue, so that's what I painted it. On the inside of this bulkhead here on this side, I painted light blue, so I paint this light blue as well. But to be absolutely sure, so I don't have to repaint it, I'm going to go look at it. Show you how it's coming along here. This is the submarine. You can see there's the torpedo room, bunks. I even painted the little ladder in the escape hatch. You can see the galley, the detail on the galley back there. You know, the cabinets and the faucets and the pots and pans and the storeroom cupboards. Little table, put up a blackboard there. All the dials and junk on the control room panels. You know, that's why it's taking so long, as I'm painting the detail like that. So this is the bulkhead on the other side of the missile room. And at some point, this entire inside here, the inside of the hull, is going to be painted to match. So right on the very, very bottom here, it's dark gray. And then at the very, very top, it's dark gray. And the whole center section is light blue. So what I would probably do, just to give you an example, is like this bottom section, the deck goes in these slots between one deck and the other. Well, it helps if it's not upside down, probably. That, okay, fits in across the bottom. And then on the other side, this one goes in here like that. And so what I probably do is I test fit all of this just to see where the line is. And then all these little ballast tanks basically underneath here would be painted that dark gray color, which is essentially the hull color. And then the same thing on top. This thing goes in here like this and then matches up on the other side. And everything above it is painted the dark gray. And then the stuff in between these two decks is painted that light blue color. And this one just goes in between here. There. But that doesn't much matter because it's mid deck, right? You might have noticed this will get painted later. I have to work on the missile tubes first and figure out how to paint this. You might have noticed that this has a warp in it. Can you just go to it rocks back and forth. I have 3 kits. I bought 3 kits in order to get enough pieces to do one model because these are authentic 1960s kits. And so parts are missing or painted or broken or, otherwise unusable. This is the least bad of the 3 decks. There's one that's warped even more. And there's one that looks straight, except it's not. It's wavy. Okay, wavy. And I figured it might be easier to get one warp out. Maybe I'll use like a hair dryer or something and prop up the center, hold down the edges and try to get the warp out. I can't, there's a lot of flexibility in this, but at some point it would crack. And I don't really want to break it. Not really. Not like the spear on the centaur that I broke before. Okay. What I need to do on this one is kind of like the other one, is that I'll be using a tiny brush to paint around the clock and this piece of machinery and the fire extinguishers and the hatch and the control panel. And then I'll use a larger brush, maybe even, quite large with bristles like this, to just try to get the paint on evenly without too terribly many brush marks. At least that's the intent. Yeah. And then I get the paint on evenly, and what happens is that these parts really don't fit together very well, but when you put paint on them, they fit together even more poorly, so sometimes you have to scrape the paint off. And I'm sure there's ways of doing this that if there was a master modeler, they would know what they were doing instead of just making stuff up as they went along. But that's how I do it. So after I paint this the light blue, this other one will be dry. This will be painted green. So you can see there's a lot of stuff that has to be painted around on this one. The ladder, I paint right over the ladder because I want to get it underneath the rungs. And then I have a very fine felt tipped pen that I use to, one dot at a time, get the rungs and vertical of the ladder. And I've used that before, like I showed you the ladder on the escape hatch, for example. So this paint is getting a little old. So I hope that it is a good consistency for this. Really good stir because it's been setting around for a while. There, make sure that that's loose, mixing up the pigment. Well, so far, what I've done is I have painted something. There you go, that much. So you've seen some relaxing painting, I guess, kind of. I'm going to put these back on because I want to see around the edges. and get a start on this and see how it goes, right? Can't finish unless you get started. Use the stuff in the bottle cap first for a little while, at least until it starts to solidify. You know, there isn't much in there, and so the solvent evaporates, becomes too thick to use effectively. Everything gets quiet again while I attempt to do this. Think of something to talk about. Since I've been working on this submarine, I have been had an opportunity to talk about, the anticipation of nuclear Armageddon in the 1960s. Duck and cover time. I think everybody's always seen that cartoon, and you think, oh, that wasn't real. That's just kind of funny. Well, when you see the flash, so that was bad. It was one of my minor OOs. Problem with the painting is often for me, it's not so much getting the paint on accurately, it's getting the brush to the work accurately. And that's what happened is I bumped into that. That will at least be an easy fix. In that I can get the correct color of paint onto that fairly easily. Pressure gauge. And be looking at it from this direction. Blue paint just here. Fire extinguishers. So yeah, it was, what's this about? Daily newspaper, like during the Cuban Missile Crisis, published this really helpful thing. It said that, if a 1 megaton warhead landed at the airport, which actually at that time, it still does, has a sort of a military base. It's your National Guard kind of thing. I just messed that up. I'm gonna have to come back with red paint. Sometimes the the angle in which you're looking makes a difference, and the paint in the cap is starting to gum up. It happens really fast. Yeah, so that was one of my favorite things, is that it very helpfully said, well, if a 1 megaton warhead landed at the Air National Guard base, they drew these nice concentric circles that showed the manner in which he would be killed by the blast. Would you be like totally disintegrated by the blast, or would you just be engulfed with the fireball and immediately incinerated, or would you simply be killed by flying debris, not because of the heat? Yeah, to fix that fire extinguisher, that just didn't go very well. Yeah, so that was a really helpful thing, to be able to look at that and see where you, assuming that the missile landing, the warhead landing was accurate. It actually just landed on the Air National Guard base instead of somewhere else. But assuming that they were accurate in their delivery of the warhead, you could see the manner in which you would be destroyed by the warhead. It was pretty cool. I thought that was really, really nice of them to publish that for us. Good to know those things, right, in advance. That's the kind of thing that there was back then when these submarines were built. The first, when this one was built, this is the very first, the prototype. Slept secure in the knowledge that someone did drop a 1 megaton warhead on the Air National Guard base, that whoever did it probably would have a 1 megaton warhead dropped on them too. So there. People talked about those because 1 megaton, it's a nice number, right? 1 megaton sounds pretty impressive. So yeah, most of these things were based on that. Although it turned out that in terms of, destroying things, bigger wasn't always better. So I think most of the warheads ended up being smaller, like in the 0.5 megaton range or so. The strategic ones, not the tactical ones. The tactical ones being the ones that you're going to use on the battlefield. Just okay. So I'm going to clean this partially here. I'm going to have to clean this off in the alcohol because it holds a fair amount of paint. To use this big brush, hopefully not mess things up terribly much anywhere. But the idea here is to avoid brush marks. Quantity of paint across the surface. Oh, it didn't work. So this isn't good right here. This part shows pretty badly. I mean, it's going to show significantly because that's the side from which you're looking. And what's happening is the paint is like setting up too quickly. And as I brush over it, it's pulling off. And I'm not sure what's happening there. I don't know why it's pulling off. I don't want it to just keep building up. It's just weird. I haven't noticed that before. Hopefully it will level nicely. Let's see. If not, it'll be lumpy. It's going kind of weirdly. Yeah, either. I've seen this paint look like this before, and then when it dries, it levels. And I'm hoping that's the case. If not, it's just going to look, I don't know. We'll see how it looks. The that paint didn't go well. It's on there now. If worse comes to worse, and sometimes it does, I can just sand it off and try again. These brushes This is just isopropyl alcohol, but it's a little more effective solvent than the water. And when there's a lot of paint on the brush, like especially around the base of the bristles and things, this little tiny brush just grabs paint and really holds on to it. Okay, this other bulkhead, which has a whole lot of stuff on it, is painted light green. As I'm painting this, on the other part of the submarine, the torpedo room, there's a place where I need to do some touch up. So I'll do that when the time comes. I'm going to I learned my lesson there on that last one. Use this sticky tack kind of thing. I'm putting it on here because this is not a painted spot. And I'm hoping that I won't be pulling paint off, but that'll still hold it securely enough. Since we're having a mediocre time of that, sort of, but not quite having the paint work. Let's keep going. This doesn't come in a bottle. This comes in a squeeze bottle, eyedropper bottle. So I'll be putting it into this palette thing. Squeeze it out, and then I'll probably need more later. And then once again, I'll be painting around things. This green comes out looking really bright green, but then it settles down into a much nicer color. Dries. Yeah, going a little quiet here while I'm painting the detail here. That hole. It's interesting. There's a reactor room. Oops, cutaway nuclear reactor, which lets you paint it all sorts of flashy, red colors and stuff to represent the heat. And the whole thing sends superheated hot water through this hole in one pipe. So it's got this whole submarine thing, right? And then there's one pipe that goes from the reactor to all of the machinery. So apparently that's how it works, is that the entire submarine is driven by one pipe full of hot water. Pretty cool. Deck sits on top of this. That's what I was saying about that other thing. When that other deck is that usually when there's a tab like that, the deck sits on top of it, not under it. I don't know if that was like a design flaw or intentional. I don't know. It's just weird because it's not consistent with the rest of it. Yeah, that was a place where I'm tempted to just not leave well enough alone. And sometimes the thing is, you just really need to leave alone. I hope the music's playing because I wasn't talking there and haven't been for a bit. Really good music by a composer who composes all of that music, and we've got permission to use it on the show. We use it on this stream and also on our Dungeons and Dragons campaign stream. Hope you kind of enjoy listening to the music now and then, instead of listening to me rattle on about nuclear Armageddon or 1960s cartoons or whatever the thing du jour is. It's always a thing du jour. Been long enough now that I am actually starting to run out of things to babble about. I know, that's our kitty protesting his confinement to the basement. You got food, you have water, you've got litter, everything you need in your little kitty life here. You got me as a companion. It's not like it's a small space. There's nooks and crannies to look into, but Jane, go ahead. Come up. Coming up would not really be a good idea. Okay. Really wants attention. And let me know that by putting its claws into my leg. Trying to climb up. You can't come up here, I'm sorry. No, don't do that. It doesn't matter whether the claws are trimmed or not. Nope, cat claws are like probably like the second sharpest thing on the planet. I don't really know what you want, and I can't help you. Not at the moment. I didn't touch that out. It just came right off the sticky thing. And the brush hit, the top of the door. To get the light gray paint out and touch up that hinge, you probably won't. Yeah, you might be able to see it from the perspective of the submarine. I've got to touch up all of that. The dark gray. I got green paint on where the dark gray needs to be because the show underneath. Implementing done. It turned out that turned out pretty well. Better than often. This paint is already starting to gum up there, so I'm going to have to squeeze some more out. Get fresher paint. paint the rest of this. Oh, I didn't finish the fire extinguishers. Huh. To look around a little bit before going. Okay, so let's get some of this paint out. And before I paint the rest of it, I'm just going to squeeze new paint because this is, I hate to waste paint like that, but sometimes it's just not usable. So I'm not going to use the really big brush this time. I don't think that worked that well. I'm going to use this. Get in the rungs. Down in. And it's one of those inevitable bumping the brush against an already painted surface. Great. Here. Hoping this will not require a second coat. Or if it does, that'll be a very light one. Let's see. Sometimes just, big flat surfaces like this you think are the easiest, but sometimes just they don't work that well. They end up requiring more work than the little detail stuff, especially since when you're painting like little bits of things, brush marks just aren't an issue because the detail is sometimes smaller than the brush even. With this, it does become an issue. And it looks all lumpy and everything, but if this paint is behaving like it should, it will all turn into a fairly level, uniformly colored, flat surface. And if it's misbehaving, well, then it will be more work. be seen until it dries, which will take a while. And if necessary, I'll do a light second coat just to, spots that turn out not to look even. Take this off and set it aside. And then there's a spot on the main submarine. Hopefully I can get that. Show it to you in a bit without dropping it or breaking everything or destroying anything. I painted the edges of the cutaway, the hull color, because it's cut away, but the paint got here. So I need to paint out the dark gray here. Okay, well, didn't destroy anything so far. Let me set it down and okay, those need to dry. And then I've got a bunch of touching up to do. I have to touch up the fire extinguishers. What color did I paint those? It's red. There's one of the edges of one of them just isn't very well done. I need to touch up some of the dark gray there, especially. You want to watch paint dry? Here, let me move these things here. Paint dry while I talk about what's going to happen next. I didn't paint that little bit there because it doesn't show. It's behind a bulkhead. So touch up the dark gray, quite a few little spots. Light gray on one of the doors. I remember one of the hatches. So I have to have the neutral gray. I need to do touch up with this, touch up with this, touch up with this. These three colors need tiny little dots of touching up. And then these bulkheads should be done. And the next steps, after I do the touching up, which will be sooner than later, the ladder, I'll need to do the ladder with the tiny little felt tip pen that I talked about. What happened here? I thought I had that line perfectly, and then good grief, how did that get messed up? Did the paint just flow? Okay, can see that. See that line there? I had that line beautifully done, and then it's not anymore. So I'm going to have to do that too. It's this color. It's another spot where I had the line at the top of that piece of machinery. I had it just right. And then I must have bumped it when I had the larger brush. So I have to fix that too. Just, wow. Okay. So some of the places where I thought I really nailed it got messed up in the later part of the process. Got a whole lot of touching up to do. It's like everything has to be fixed. Lovely. Yeah. It's really disappointing when you think you get something just right and then don't. Oh, there too. I had that line just right. Right. That line was just right. And when I got the bigger brush out, it obviously got closer to those edges than I thought it would. Wow. Hmm. Yeah. Well, one thing I can fix quickly is this hatch, neutral gray. There's hardly anything touching it. The green paint is not going to be a problem. The thing I'm painting here is, I don't know if you can see it, but I got green paint on the hinges. Let's see if I can do it without my head magnifier. No. Okay. Well, it was weird. Some of those, the boundary lines, I thought, wow, I really nailed those. And then I looked back, and then when I was spreading the paint, larger areas, I messed it up. Now I have to go back and fix them. Okay, I fixed that. Yay. I wish it needs to be fixed. Those are pretty decent. Yeah, I need to wait for this to dry. Otherwise the paint colors will kind of mix together, and that would just really be bad. That would really be messy. So I can see on this already that there are places like here, 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 up here, down there, where the paint is just uneven. So there needs to be a partial second coat put on this one. Look at that. Yeah, the paint ran. I had the bottom of that nailed as well. Just perfect. Man. Okay, so when I put the heavier layer of paint on, it just ran. You can see like a lump of paint there. And so the work I did to do all of the edging in so many places turned out to be a waste, because now I need to fix it, and who knows how many times I need to go back and forth. And that's going to take a while to dry. It's just black. Pretty sure I used this black. Okay, well, I'm a little frustrated by this, as you can tell, because I thought I had, there were just a few spots here and there that I had a problem. But then when I got a little impatient, I guess, a little impatient spreading the paint around, trying to avoid a second and third coat, it just ran. lubed up blobs of paint. Um, yeah, and the only reason cat claws are behind Legos in the carpet is that a cat claw is usually just this little pinprick of a pain, right? Whereas a Lego in the carpet means you can hardly even walk. My favorite TV cat. Oh, what TV cats can I choose from? There is the cat on the Flintstones that hardly anybody knows about, the one that Fred puts out at the end in the ending credits. For some reason, setting the cat out on the stoop, and then the cat runs in and slams the door shut. I found out that cat actually had a name. It's called Little Puss, which is a really stupid name. I just have to editorialize about that. It's just a really stupid name. But that's what they named it. And apparently, that name came in like a short or something. It wasn't on the TV show. I really like the dock on Lower Decks. I can't remember its name. Can't remember their name. I don't think they are actually just a cat. There's some sort of like tabaxi-like critter, personage. But that's a really good character. Cats didn't appear that often. Gigi's good on Kiki's Delivery Service, but that's not really a TV cat. That's a movie cat. Well, there's a lot of touching up to do because after very careful application of paint around the edges of things, I had very uncareful application of the rest of the base coat. So I've got black and red and beige, just two colors of black. Dark gray. Wow. Yeah. Like 6 colors of touching up to do when there really should have been just like 2 or 3 spots. But got careless as I was spreading paint. This stuff needs to dry before I can touch up. So I think what I'm going to do, just thinking about it, what I am going to attempt to do before I do all of that touching up, which won't be before the break at this point. This will have to dry over break. And so after break, I will do sigh. I'm going to sigh a lot and do touching up. I'm going to take a few minutes to see if this will actually work as a mask. As I mentioned early on, I've got this deck, and this deck is all the machinery that allows the missiles to launch. And I'm pretty sure what we have is a compressor, and here, this bit here goes there. It's like not, I guess you can't really could call it a storage tank. It's what it is. It's like where the compressed air resides. Doesn't go in there. There must be some paint buildup or something. Anyway, this thing is there, and then air comes into it and into it from this other piece of machinery here. Pipe goes across, okay, like that. But This is like a storage tank that makes sure that there's sufficient compressed air, and the compressed air goes to all these missile tubes, and that's what launches them. But I need to somehow, like the edges that I sort of gotten and messed up when I applied too much paint on these things. Okay, the same thing here is I need to get edges on all of these pipes when I paint the deck gray. So I've got this little really thin masking tape stuff. I used it before on the deck there, and it worked okay. I'm going to try. I'm going to see how this works. Is what I'm thinking I'm going to do. What I'm going to try to do is mask along here, because then this is a straight line, right? Do that. I think this knife would work, right? There we go. I can take this piece of straight tape, lay it exactly on the bottom of that pipe. Then I should be able to get a straight line with it. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's there. I don't know if it's in exactly the right place or not, but it should create a straight line, or at least straight-ish. Since I didn't place it quite right, that's where I doubled it over so that I could find the end of it here. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. It looks like it might work. No, until it's done. Let's see what happens. back of this maybe to push it up. Well, it might not be a perfect line, but it'll probably be better than if I tried to do it freehand. At least that's what I'm hoping. Doing it just on the front. So do the back of it freehand because you can't see the back. Okay. Looking at it this way, won't be able to see the bottom of the back part. Yeah. Yay, tape, not letting loose. And there, who knows? Who knows how this will work? If worst comes to worst, just repaint it or take the paint off or use one of the other pieces from one of the other models. Okay, what I do need to do is, well, let me do this last one, and then I need to tape around these things. Definitely using up the time here while the paint is drying. I'm going to have to be careful to resist the tendency to put way too much paint on it. And then just, yeah, like I did, okay, with the O's that I have to touch up where I ended up putting too much paint on and then it ran all over everything and made a huge mess. Places I didn't need messes. I think the tweezers would work there, but they don't. I'm not sure if this will work or not, but it probably won't be any worse than if I tried to do it freehand. Having a good old time putting tape on things. So, you know, be yeah, like that didn't work because it got down on the part that You know, you would think that tweezers would work. Let's find out. Baby spider. Yay. Maybe this is good practice because in a couple of days, we'll be painting a bunch of bedrooms and I need to tape all the woodwork and, all sorts of things that need to be taped so that they don't get painted over. It's kind of like doing this. It'll be interesting to put some paint on here and then take the tape off and see what it looks like. Sure, this would be easier with better eyesight and eye-hand coordination than I have at the moment. Just this moment. It's actually all moments down to it. But yeah, it's coming along. I mean, I'm getting tape on things. It's sort of where I want it. And it's something to do that has something to do with relaxing painting while I'm waiting for this paint to dry before I do the massive touch-ups that I need to do because of the massive screw-ups that I managed to do when I was painting those. Because yeah, I did good painting and then followed it up by bad painting and messed up my good painting with my bad painting. Yay. Too long, I guess. Maybe I should use the sticky side down. sticking where I don't want it, not where I do. I'm going to peel that off later after I get this back to kind of where I want it. This just might work. We'll find out. This particular piece of tape. This piece of tape is not working. It's not where I wanted it. Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit past normal break time just to get this done because it's pretty close to being done. It looks like, although these little bits are kind of a pain. It's done. Then I can take a break, come back in a little while. Just a little while. This paint will be dry. The blue paint is drying pretty well. I should be able to do the touch up on that stuff. After break, the green will be done too. And I'll be able to fix the things that I had done right and then undid. Just can't get it on straight. One end, yes. The other end, no. Yeah, that's much better. I'll suggest that when this model is done, that it be viewed in dim light by people who have poor eyesight, and then it'll look really good. Primary use for this really skinny tape is canopies on model airplanes. You know, they're all this clear plastic, right? And then they have these lines where the metal frame is supposed to be. And somehow or other, you're expected to get paint on those, but not on the clear canopy. And if you get paint on a clear canopy, there's no way to fix that. There just really isn't. It's not like you can paint it over because it's just a clear canopy. So the idea is to tape it so that the tape covers the clear part, right? And you can paint the lines then by spray painting over it. requires the same kind of just absurd manipulation of ridiculously tiny pieces of tape. I am now down to 2. I'm tempted to tape the bottoms of these things too, but I've been able to do okay freehand, except for when I have a beautiful line and then blob it up by screwing it up later, which is what I've done to parts of those bulkheads. Yeah. Oh, that came out really well. And then I get the bigger brush out and paint over it, and yeah, then it's just a hideous mess. Yeah, so I had some really good success with little bits of these bulkheads, and then in about 3 places just messed it up. That was just really good. I mean, I was leaving the edge out very nicely. It's almost comical sometimes how I'm able to do that. So I was keeping the edge out, right? There it is. And then just as I was reaching in, I messed it up by pushing it back in. Okay. Yeah, let me take a look at this again. Kind of go around it. Push the tape up. Got down too far. Down where it's up too high. So this isn't perfect, but I think that if I'm careful with my brushing, that if the tape is going to work at all, it will be okay. This isn't going to show. It's going to be behind the storage tank, the compressor storage tank. Well, I'm going to let that set and take a break, come back and do all the massive touching up on all the massive touch-up messes I made with all of these colors of needing touching up. and then maybe I'll get brave and try to paint this thing. I think I'm going to use the little brush around this stuff. And I might actually just use the large brush on this and just brush up against the tape with the bigger brush rather than try to do it with the teeny brushes. And then see if I can get the tape off and see what kind of line I got. If not, I'll just be going back and forth many times, you know, trying to make it look okay. But for now, yeah, it is what it is. So there. Thanks for watching so far. Relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons. It has been mostly relaxing, except for when I looked at all of the places on these bulkheads where I just really, really made a mess because for some reason I thought I was being careful and I wasn't. But most of it can be retouched, hopefully just once, and it will look as good as it did or was supposed to look originally. So this is coming along. You can see that, you know, that there were paint elevations, but now it's just pretty much just a gloss variation in the gloss. I need to touch that up because I messed that up. To look at this, did the paint actually get on the tops of those fire extinguishers too? Did it run that much? Yeah, just how did it even get in there? The tops of those fire extinguishers were metallic, and I painted around them very, very carefully. Yeah, so the quantity of paint I was using I just ruined those. So I need to paint those over too. I'm going to have to do those very carefully. Wow, just amazing how badly that went. The dark aluminum. I'm going to have to be really, really careful with this because it kind of tends to run. Mess it up, I have to come back and do it again in the other color. Yeah, I mean, I brushed across, not even close to those, and it just painted right over it, ran right over the tops. See, they're supposed to be shiny like that, metallic. So I have to try to get tiny little dots of paint on those. And then I'm going to have to get the light blue out, and there's inconsistencies in the color, you know. So I'm going to have to do some touching up with a fairly broad brush, but trying to stay away from any of the details. Wow, quite a thing. Yeah, so we'll let those dry. Don't get too impatient. I'm going to be back. I always say I'll be back in like half an hour, and then I always take 40 minutes. It's just kind of a traditional thing here on Relaxing Painting is to promise a short break and then make it a long one. So I'll do the same thing. You know, my break tradition. I'm going to promise a short break, and we'll be back. I will be back after break. It's just never. It's always an open question about when the break will end. Yeah. So stop talking about break. Take the break. Come back. Do a whole lot of touch up. It's going to take a while because there's a bunch of different colors and I just little bits here and there. Washing brushes and watching this brush in between, that kind of thing. Anyway, break time. I shall be back about half an hour, about 1:45. Well, in a rather shocking turn of events, I am back pretty much on time. Yeah, usually I'm at least 10 minutes late in getting back from break, but not this time. Pretty much on time. So I'm looking at this taping that I did, and you know, it's not too bad. Not too bad. In fact, I'm almost tempted to just say I should paint the whole thing gray, and then and maybe I'll do that. You know, if worst comes to worst, what I'll do is I'll paint the whole thing gray, and then just tape like this, tape the pipes over. Maybe do a little better job with the taping, but that's an alternative if nothing else works. Is to cover the pipes in tape like this. As long as it kind of looks like maybe insulation on the pipes or something. But if nothing else works, that's an option. Okay, the paint is fairly dry on these things. I need to do a lot of touching up. I'm going to start with, a head magnifier on for this whole thing because I need to see tiny little bits of stuff. So I'm going to start with the metallic. Get things out of the way, sort of, more or less out of the way. The tops of some of the fire extinguishers got covered in paint in a very unhelpful way. The paint ran just a lot, so I'm going to do a lot of touching up here, and then I need to do some touching up of the base coat of both the green and the light blue because it didn't cover all that well, and hopefully I can do that without further making a mess of anything. But I should be able to get enough paint right out of the tip of the bottle without even having to squeeze any out. So what I'm trying to do is get the tiniest little bits to paint. Extinguishers here. That I don't know how that got there. They got a tiniest little drop of. Oh my! That was just really. I have no clue. Sometimes how these things happen. You're looking at it from this side. That'll do. Okay. I have to paint some of these things in red. Some of the fire extinguishers. Here. This is the one This is the one error I made. That was a real error when I actually painted it the first time, as opposed to the unforced error that happened later. It got out of control. I can get it, both reach the paint, the spot that needs to be painted, and keep it in focus at the same time, and I'm not succeeding. It's always almost that after break, it feels chilly down here. It must be that I adapt to the temperature while I'm down here, and then I go upstairs where it's warmer. Quite the way I want. I better check these out first, though. These are okay. So after I clear this off, I'm gonna pull the metallic out again. For those fire extinguishers to look like they should have looked like before I messed them up. Excuse me. Yeah, just that kind of thing. Tips of them. Do the blue touch up. Got a tiny little bits around there. Okay, is that color? Did this color. And I do the bone white. Do this touch up. On the top of mainly around the top of this piece of machinery, whatever it is, here. Do these, this one. There's the major issue with this piece here. A tiny little bit there. This is this model. That'll do. Okay. Now I need for the frame on the top of the frame of the tool kit. And did that. Paint that red, full black or NATO black? I think I did black. This is the same color. Find out when it dries, huh? And then the bottom of the clock, this is really a mess. You'll see. Just fell. That might be okay. Dark gray color, spots all over the place. And then I got touch up of the base colors on the walls where it's just not even. Amazing how when you put something under like 2.5 times magnification, something that looks perfectly fine just doesn't anymore. This is on display. It should be in dim light at a distance, so that all these amazing flaws aren't so obvious. Because it looks pretty good under dim light at a distance. Close up, yeah, not so much. Which color will I mess up by touching up first? Where shall I begin? Give this a major cleaning later. I think I'm going to do the green first. I'm going to, what brush should I use? This one, I think this will work with the second coating of things. Yeah, I mean, if you look at it from a distance, it's really pretty decent, isn't it? If you don't get too close. Yeah. Just don't look at it with the bright light with these magnifiers, and then you'll never know that there's things that aren't very good. Okay, so I'm going to be putting just a thin second coat over much of this. This will do. Just make the color much more uniform. And what I'm going to try to do is not what I almost did there, which is to carelessly get the paint on an important surface. Yeah, almost again. I'm going to try to keep this brush away. What I want to do is keep this brush away from places that have edges. It looks different, but it dries to the appropriate color. Okay, so I don't think I had a disaster there at all. This green is coming out okay. The light blue one there's problems with that. That I'm not sure can be fixed really. Just looking to see if there's any real obvious spots. These kinds of things will level out. This one, I'm going to declare this pretty much a success. I don't know if I can do it with this brush. I better leave that now. I think this is looking okay. This guy turned out okay. You just need to do the ladder, and that's a touchy kind of thing. to do something similar with this light blue. Because there's just spots that aren't really very good. So get that paint out and give it a good stir, and then spread it around and hope for the best. There's some areas that you can see are not quite dry yet because they're still kind of shiny. But if I can get this on more or less okay, just the gloss. The glossiness will match. It's hitting spots where the paint was like mist before. It wasn't very good. There's little weird, it's like little spots of pigment. So pigment. Can't really see them except under magnification, but they're just little dots everywhere. It's like there were lumps in the pigment, kind of. Like a little pimple, a little raised spot. It's just that weird unevenness scattered throughout. This will all work out. And look okay when it dries. Even the surface texture is really rough because of these little raised, these little dots, like pigment that's in there. Right at a distance. Should look. Yeah, that good enough. I need to step back and see what's done and what isn't done here. isn't done is I need to clean these brushes and take this off. Bring my mug down. I filled it with nice, fresh, clean water, hydrating, that kind of thing. And then didn't bring it. All right. So the next thing and the last thing for the day is I'm going to try to paint this. And it's going to be a combination of tiny little brush around all of this, and then actually a fairly large brush. I'm going to use a big brush and just try to paint this stuff without getting paint everywhere. Clean what's left of it. It's a really nice brush, but the bristles disintegrate fairly quickly. Just little nubbins of bristles, which for this purpose is okay. But yeah. Anyway, this is Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons, and it's been sort of relaxing today. Not too bad. The bulkheads will come along. This is all going to be painted this neutral gray color. And there's all these pieces of machinery here that need to be edged. I'm not even going to bother with the stuff in the cap now, because that tends to be a problem. Yeah, I guess I'll have to put these back on. Otherwise, I really can't see. Best is to get a bunch of paint on the surface and then spread it up to the thing I'm painting against, rather than just getting paint there. I don't know why that works, but it's the only thing that really seems to be consistently effective. So that the little brush isn't so much applying paint as redistributing paint. Even if there's such a thing as too much paint. As I've gone silent again, as I'm trying to get its line more or less even. That one's not too crucial because you won't be able to see it from the front. These weird little bits in front here. Pieces of machinery to launch these missiles. Let's see, 16 of them. Sometimes a city's big and you need more than one warhead to destroy it. But there's probably enough here to wipe out at least 10 cities, maybe a whole dozen. It's, that's pretty cool, right? Leak up underwater and let loose the fury of the sun. I got up on the side there. It's probably a spot. Yeah, I'll fix it anyway, even though it's probably a spot that will be invisible once this thing is put together. As you saw when I showed you the submarine itself earlier in this stream, you view it from the front, it's a cutaway. And so you can't see the backs of stuff. Get on a little bigger brush and paint around here. Right up, what kind of failure I can make out of this. Up to about here. Piece of here. This color is almost the same color as the primer. So sometimes it's hard to see, what's been painted and what hasn't. Some just got painted. I can tell that because it's not the color of the primer. Use a large brush to spread the paint. Good effect. And hopefully this tape method will work. Find out. Wednesday, I guess, which is when you take the tape off and see what's underneath it. Getting paint in these holes. That's going to be a problem down the road. I can predict. The the clearance between the missile tubes and the holes is like 0. Okay. What that means is that any paint in these holes is going to get in the way of being able to slide the missile tubes through them. But then the missile tubes themselves are painted, and it's not, I'm going to spray paint them, I think, at least try it, and that might work. But I don't know how this texture just got real crappy here in front. I might have to sand that down and redo it. It's like I rebrushed it, and it just picked up the paint. In fact, I'm going to just fix that now. I'm going to wipe all this off. It's just really a mess. Very, very unhappy with that. And let that dry a bit and then repaint it. Do it right this time. See if I can't down the line. Yeah, that's better. All right. I have no idea what's going to happen when that tape comes off. It'll either look beautiful or it'll look like I need to wipe this thing clean and go right back to the primer. Really don't know, but I'm going to set that aside. Camp these things up and do a recap of what happened today and what will be coming up. And I'll do that without these on. All right. So what I got accomplished today is I took these bits off of the clips so that they go bouncing around. And I got these guys painted the base color of the bulkheads. The green one came out, I think, okay. The blue one, not so good. The blue paint is just not as good as the green. I'll be using a lot of that blue paint on the hull of the submarine, but it'll be way behind the missile tube, so it won't be seen that much. It'll be fairly invisible. But I think this came out kind of nice. You know, you can see the hatches really well, and the toolkit came out kind of cool. Here, the big feature is the control panel, and that's just fine. I got the whatever this is, clock or dial or something, or alarm system. That got okay. I did the touching up I needed to touch up. So what needs to be done on this, I'm not going to do it until next time, I think, because I really want to make sure the green is dry, is this step ladder needs to be done with that extremely fine felt tip pen, so that it's black. The rungs and the verticals will be black. Yeah, I got all that done. There was stuff on the other side that I needed to touch up. I painted the black up there, or the dark gray. So these are done, and next time I can test fit them into the hull to make sure they fit okay, and if not, do some sanding and filing. I taped this up and painted it gray, and then I'll pull the tape off. What the hell? Yeah, but I didn't get paint where I needed it there. Damn it. I don't know how I missed that. That's going to show back there. Sorry. Just right along this line here. Be getting too much paint on there, and that might be a problem with the tape, but that needs to be gray. It didn't cover up very well. Back one's okay, but the middle one wasn't. For some reason, there's always this touching up kind of stuff. And there will be along these lines. Once the tape comes off, I have no idea what I'm going to find. So I may end up spending like forever trying to get those to look good or not. We'll see. Yeah, so if this worked, if this thing with the tape worked without too much touch up, then I am to the point where I've got to figure out how to paint this. All these little circles need to be yellow and the rest is gray. And that, I just don't know. I think maybe, since the primer color is really close to, and it is not even on here, I'm going to spray this with the primer. I'm going to leave the primer instead of putting gray on it. And then focus on getting these somehow painted yellow. I'm not sure how I'll do that. But then this will be ready for the missile tubes. And the missile tubes are going to be really boring because I'm not going to be painting them yet. What is going to happen with them, these all need to be alcohol washed. What I'm going to be doing with them is I'm going to be sanding and filing them. And I'll show you the problem in a minute after I get some of this paint out of these brushes. No, this one's really something. Is the missile tubes are made up of halves. There's two halves. You would expect there to be two halves, right? I mean, that's why they're halves, is that there's two of them. And they got cemented together, but these parts aren't perfect. And so they don't align perfectly well. They don't align, some of them don't align very well at all. Sometimes there's gaps between the two parts. Usually there's a ridge, like they're offset, very slightly offset. which leaves a ridge on each side. One, there's the it'll be raised on one side and low on the other, and then just the opposite on the other side. So those need to be filed and then sanded, because once they're painted a glossy color, those ridges are going to show pretty badly. They're going to be really, really obvious. And even though they're off to the side, not front or back, or on the sides, they'll still be visible. And so I'm going to take the time to smooth those ridges out as much as I can so that they're as invisible as possible. And then spray paint them. And then probably spend the better part of who knows how long reaming out the holes in this deck so that they will slide through without scraping off all the paint, which would be really missing the point. So the big challenges now are going to be these hatches on the top. That's a big challenge. And then getting the missile tubes through these holes without scraping off the paint. The missile tubes need to be cemented into this base. The bases don't fit. The cement is going to dissolve the paint, so I'm going to have to be doing all sorts of mucking around with those. And then they need to slide through here and eventually get cemented to the top of this. And if the periscope tubes were any indication, none of that's going to fit. So the situation with these missile tubes is that, first of all, some of them were badly molded and they've got dimples in them. You can just barely see one here, but some had really bad dimples in the molding process. And I'm going to try to put those, in off to the side or the back so that they don't show. But you can see that there's little bits of plastic up at the top here where it came off the trees, and you can see the seam. You can see the seam because there's a slightly raised edge, and in some of the cases, or some of these tubes, there's actually a little gap that needs to be filled in. So all of these seams need to be filed down and then sanded so that they're smooth on both sides. And I did one side of one of them. I think this one. No. Maybe I did the top of this one. Yeah, it looks like I got maybe the top of this one, but not the bottom yet, because there was a big ridge here. You can see the ridge on the bottom. You can probably even see that on camera. And I was able to take it off here, but that's what it looks like. But it takes, careful filing to get that off, and then sanding with very fine sandpaper to smooth it out so you don't have all sorts of file marks on it. But that's how the side of one of these looks when it's done. You can see that there's variations in colors. I actually have missile tubes from all three submarine models here. I had to go through all three of them to get 15 tubes. And then there's a special tube with a spring in it and a lever that launches missiles. Yeah. Launches a missile. Anyway, this makes a mess. Tiny little filings of plastic go all over the place. You can just feel it. The ridge isn't there, but it's not perfectly round. It's like there's a high spot. So I don't know. I might sand that a little bit further and just see what can be done about it. You can still feel the ridge a little bit. So I'll try to do that with sanding. But I just have to get this done on all 15 missile tubes, and this might be what I do next Wednesday. It might be all I do. Well, no, that won't be all I do. I will be taking the tape off to see what's underneath it. Ooh, actually, I should do that now, shouldn't I? I should do that now before the paint is fully dry. Well, let's have an unveiling party. Let's see what kind of what this turned into. I don't know. I'm gonna get this little tweezers out so I can grab some of the tape. Grab the end of the tape here and pull the tape off. Okay, that is like 90% okay. For some reason, okay. No, I would say, the paint didn't go up high enough here, a little bit high all along here. The tape is not really a success. So this is going to require a fair amount of work to make work to look the way I want it to. And I'll work on that next week. On Submarine Wednesday next week. Be fixing these pipes so that they kind of look okay. Okay, getting the floor and the piping. It just looks really ragged right now. The edges just didn't come out even. So either the tape wasn't tight enough, which is a possibility, or it wasn't exactly in the place where it needed to be, or it was down too far or up too. But I would say it was worth a try, but it was not a success. You can see what I was aiming for. You can see that the pipes are on there, and that the one in the middle, actually the one in the back is the one that turned out almost the best. But so I think what I'm going to do is, when I get to touching up, is I'm going to touch up with the gray first, especially like a place like that there where the paint just came up way too high, where it didn't go far enough, or back here is I'm going to touch those up with the gray first, and then attempt. No, I'm not going to do that. I'm backing off. I'm going to do the beige first along these places where there's too much, where the gray went up onto it. Okay, there's quite a lot of that. And then I'm going to take the gray and just attempt to clean up the lines on the bottom as much as I can. But I'd say that turned out, it's a disappointment. I was hoping that would have come out and looked really, really good, but it just looks pretty sloppy. I probably could have done it by hand just as well, which might be okay because I end up doing it by hand. What can I say? Other than I'm going to end up doing it by hand. Yeah, so next week on Friday. Come back on Friday when I do some minifigs. I'm going to be finishing up the last 2 of the 7 imps. I'll be getting those done. And then maybe working on something else. I'm not sure. Need to do some priming of stuff anyway between now and then. Be priming this and a couple of other bunch of minifigs. I'll be doing that on Friday. And then next week, I'm planning on a full week. Hopefully, we won't have things happening, because things keep happening. Hopefully, things won't be happening, and I'll be able to do this on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday like usual. So Friday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 until 2, more or less. Sorry I missed the beginning of this week. I hope that didn't disrupt your viewing. I am back, and this is for real. Relaxing Painting with Dice and Dungeons. And if you can, please catch our Dungeons and Dragons stream with live chat on 3 Sundays a month from 2 o'clock Eastern Time. If you like what you're seeing here, please become a follower. If you watch it on YouTube, become a subscriber. That's a really helpful thing. Or you can go to patreon.com/dice and dungeons, patreon.com/dice and dungeons, and become a patron and support Dice and Dungeons in that way as well. So, just a few minutes early, but I don't have anything else to do other than to say this was adequate. I achieved adequately on these bulkheads, and I failed to achieve adequately on this deck with the air pipes, which I still need to somehow or other unwarp. And then I need to just do a whole lot of these missile tubes where you'll watch me make tiny little bits of white plastic flying all over the place. I want to do that without this stuff around, because I discovered when I did that one, it just gets on everything everywhere and makes a huge mess. Yeah, huge mess is kind of a thing I do here. Occasionally you'll see a huge mess. Frequently you'll see a small mess. Thanks for watching or listening. Really appreciate it. And I will be back on Friday at about 10 o'clock in the morning to get started on relaxing painting with Dice and Dungeons when I go back to Dungeons and Dragons kinds of things, painting imps and some other minifig of yet to be determined. Thanks again, and we'll see you.